combat tips and some strategies to get it set up. Go over a little variety of things that are related to combat. I don't want to go too deep into the woods, however, it is almost Christmas, and I know a lot of you are going to take advantage of the holiday sale. So if you're faced with setting up any combat or anything like that, it may also be something that you want to check out, depending on what you're going to be doing this coming holiday season. But I'm going to go ahead and cover a little bit of combat, and I wanted to address some of the more common things that you'll need to know, or at least get an idea of. I am using the Fantasy Grounds 5th edition rule set. So this assumes that you have a license and that you have access to content. So if you don't have this content or you're not sure about what's going on here, actually use the Fantasy Grounds full version, the Ultimate Edition, on over here on the right under the modules. If I open this up, I have some of Rob 2E's modules for character creation, and I have various books open here on the left, but this is not something I would typically have loaded during any sort of game. So the only reason all these are open is because I was building characters prior to this. But if you're going to run an adventure or a module, you don't necessarily need to have every single book open. This is mostly just for character creation. So technically, once you've built the characters, you don't need to leave all this stuff open. Just a few of them when it comes to leveling up or upon the initial build of characters. So that's just something that it will help you with basically keeping the load down on your computer and on your online session. So I'm going to go to this activation window here. And if you click on this filter, the rule set filter, or in this case, the load filter, it'll only show you the stuff that's loaded. So I'm going to unload the things that I don't really need. So there could be a bunch of modules that you have loaded that are just unnecessary. A lot of times people will have like 50 gazillion books open when they were building their characters. However, as time goes on, if you keep all these things open, it'll be very detrimental potentially to your table, especially as more and more stuff gets added to your campaign. It can really start bogging things down. So it's a good idea to close a lot of these things. Once you've already created your characters, you normally don't need to have all these things open. It's just upon building the characters and when you're trying to maintain them or update them. But other than that, you really don't need a bunch of these open. I might keep a couple of these open just for reference. Like I'll keep the player's handbook open, maybe the Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, the main books, but I don't need every single book in here, especially if it's just stuff where you had purchased a book just for a certain race or a background, those sort of things. Those generally don't need to be open the whole time. So occasionally you'll have a character that you build that will have a spell in there that you need to have open so you can read the spell description. But generally speaking, I don't normally keep all these open. So I'll close the majority of these before I start playing. So these are just modules that I probably won't use during gameplay. And it also keeps the overhead down. So you don't want to share 50 million books if you don't need to. So I went ahead and pared that down some, like a lot of this stuff up here. The class features, spells, race traits, these are effects automation. So I'll keep a lot of that. Here's the adventuring gear, potions, just in case I run into some potions, race traits, feats. I won't need the race traits anymore unless I build characters from scratch. Background equipment and class bundles, I don't need that. So I'm only keeping the essentials. I do have a pre-gen module here that I might load later just to show you some how to get those characters, but nonetheless I think that's good. So I pared down my library just so I don't need to have every single thing open, just the content you're going to need. And you don't always know what you're going to need, but if you do realize that you're just basically hoarding a bunch of books to be open for character creation, that only usually happens in the beginning of the adventure and maybe when you level up. So all right, so this is 4 characters that I've built on this particular session, kind of a holiday theme. I have a map here that I'm going to show off shortly. This is a map that is holiday related This map was created by Moepsii Maps, and I'll put a description for his website, or he's got an Etsy site where he sells virtual tabletop maps. He does a pretty good job. He's one of the Fantasy Grounds Academy members. He's been around for a while, so kind of give him a little shout out for providing this for free. If you're wanting the same map, go ahead and come on into the Fantasy Grounds Academy, go to the GM section, and their map is posted in there. It's not really hosted anywhere in particular. But I'm going to turn off the line of sight just for a moment, just so you can see the size of this thing. So I've already got line of sight put on here. I put it on myself. Most of the time when you buy content, the line of sight data will already be there. So in other words, if you unlock the map and then you go to this symbol, looks like a brick wall, you can see the line of sight here. It's already included, the doors. These are glass that I put on here because I want the players to still see that, but I don't necessarily want them to crawl into the vat without a conversation. And then there's some windows in here, and then there's a few other tidbits, like here's some big tall ovens that you can't see over the top of, that sort of thing. So just kind of let you see the type of thing you might expect when you are basically participating in a game and you want to see like what's come with. Now this here, I made a mistake on the door. If you look, this door here is missing, but that was the way the map was set up. So that's not really a mistake. But this front thing, there's no door up here, so there would be no way that these players could get in and out. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw that in now. So I got a rectangle, and I'm going to go into the door tool and just left click and drag. Oops, that's the wrong one. I want the door tool, not the window. Left click and drag, and there we go. So the door is now fixed. So now I'm going to go back to play mode, which is the mode that you'd be in for playing. And then I'm going to turn back on the line of sight and the lighting. So that impacts what the players can see. And I have it on enable display player vision. I have it on because I want to see how the players would see. And then I'll go ahead and lock the map. So when you hover over a token now, it's going to show a preview up here on the top left. So if I hover over the turtle, it's going to show that as a preview, and it's temporary, so you can see which one you're actually hovering over. There's Minnie the Minotaur, there's Cat Curious Kazan, and here is Swish, Swashbuckler, and Yordle the Turtle. So those are the characters. So we have a cleric, a bard, a rogue, and a warrior, essentially. So that's what these guys are. So these are also on the combat tracker. Something recent that just was changed, or that is adjusted since a lot of the videos have come out over the last couple years. So if you're new to Fantasy Grounds, this won't really impact you as much. But if you are used to Fantasy Grounds, you've already been using it for a while, besides that hovering change, one of the things that was recently brought out was the fact that you can add characters now straight from the menu. So I'm just going to demonstrate this for one. So I'm going to right-click and delete the token of the Harengon guy here. I'm going to delete him off the combat tracker, and then I'm going to delete him off the combat tracker here in the map. So what you can do now is if I go under characters, and let's say that character had just come on the table or it was a new character, I can now just drag this straight from the character selection window onto the map. I don't have to go onto the combat tracker first and then onto the map. You can just put it on the map straight and direct. So if I left click and drag, it populates this character on here, and it's now on the map. And then if you go to the party sheet, this is where you would manage the characters that are up here that are shown, that are connected to the table, which there really isn't anyone. But that's a new change also. So if I go to options, and then I come over here, you can change how you view the characters. So there's a category here that you can put on. It says desktop, show PCs. You can go all or active only. So if it's active only, that means only players that are connected to your table. If you put it on all, it'll just show all characters. And the way you manage this, if you want individuals off or on here, is you do that through the actual party sheet. And in the party sheet, you would remove whatever characters you don't want. So let's go back to this rabbit again. So if I'm on the main tab and I right click and delete this Herringen, it's no longer going to be up in this list, and I'll have to drag this guy back into the party sheet. So that's how you manage those individually. Or you can turn it off and just use it the way you're used to, and how Fantasy Grounds used to work before. So it's kind of up to you how you want to do it. Why they did this, I don't remember. I don't know why the purpose was, but it is kind of cool. I kind of like the idea of having these connected, so I'll know which characters out of a pool of how many others. So that way, if I need to toggle it or switch it, I'll be able to do so. So that's that. So basically, the setup that I have here is, as a player, if I was going to be playing in this game, I'd have the map located somewhere where it's not covering everything. And then all the character sheets are laying here on the right-hand side of the combat tracker, depending on how your table's laid out. And basically, if I click on any of these characters, they're going to come up to the top of the list. So if I click on the right here, and let's say it's the Herringen's Swishwash the Rogue, it's his turn. It's going to come up to the top by clicking on this little link on the right or clicking on the portrait over here. So that's a way to kind of manage this. And then if I go to the Actions tab, now I have full access to all their abilities, all those sort of things. And then he's got lucky footwork. He's got this hop, and this hair trigger thing is something that I'm going to initially activate, because he gets +2 on initiative. So these are just things that the player might do when they first start. So if you have everything located in a certain area and you go to exit out of Fantasy Grounds and you leave all the windows open, now when you come back, it will put them back where you had the windows. You don't have to reopen them. So there's a setting in the options, which basically will allow you to restore windows on start. So as long as that's on, your windows will stay where they're at next time you come back on, as long as you leave them open. Don't close them and then exit. Just leave them open, the ones that you're going to come back to, and then when you come back on, they'll all be there instead of minimized or put away. There is an exception with maps. So if you have a map that's kind of like in the background, like it is no longer in focus, and you close, this one won't show. So it depends on how the map is laid out, but floating windows generally don't stay, but there's an exception to it. So this is just 4 characters that I have on here. They're all pre-made, ready to go. Those are the guys that are up here on the map, and we're outside this door, the doorway that didn't exist before. I forgot to put it in there. And then I do have a little bit of snow going on in the background. It's kind of themed for the holidays. And by the way, happy holidays, folks, if you're watching. Basically, what I'm going to be doing is kind of going through this combat, and just kind of a real quick thing. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but kind of wanted you to see kind of the under the hood and then some of the little bit of the prep. The other thing is there are no encounters set up for this yet. I didn't build anything for those. I kind of wanted to show you how to do that really quick, so that if you are faced with having to do that or adjusting it, you'll have an idea. So this again assumes that you have some content, or maybe you have a module loaded. In most cases, the encounters will be linked inside of the map before you even start. And then I'm going to go ahead and shut this down just so you can see what I'm working on. So this is kind of a preparatory thing, or maybe you need to add something that's missing or whatever. This is all custom, so there's nothing here for it other than the map. So what I'm going to do is first go to NPCs, and I want to figure out some sort of creature that's not going to be super powerful that I'm going to battle these characters with. These are only 3rd level characters, so maybe some like hobgoblins or something like that. Maybe some goblins are running this factory. So maybe, you know, that's their base of operations. They took over the factory. They're causing mischief. Maybe that's why we're here in the first place, so on and so forth. So I have a whole adventure written up for this, but I didn't want to get into all that for this particular topic. So I want to go ahead and take and look for Goblin, or you can scroll to it. So if I go to Goblin here, it looks like I got a few different ones. So there's a Goblin boss and regular Goblin. So I'm going to use those for my encounter. So what I want to do is come over here to the right, and I'm going to create a encounter on the fly, so to speak. So I'm going to come over here on the right under the campaigns area and go to encounters. And now what I'm going to do is create my own. So I'm going to click on this green plus button, or I can right click and I can add an item if I want. The other thing you want to get in the habit of is making your own group. So rather than just making it right here, I'm going to take the drop down arrow and click on this green plus button, which will make a new group. And then I'm going to click the edit button, which allows me to change the title or the name of the group. So I'm going to call this Candy Factory because that's where I want this encounter to exist. And then I'm going to stop editing, and I have a new category. So you don't necessarily have to do this if it's just a one-off thing, but if you're going to make a bunch of stuff, get in the habit of doing that instead of having it all or uncategorized. It's better if you put them in groups. So that way, if you want to export it later on, it's a lot easier and it's separated out from the other content. So now what I'm going to do is create the actual encounter. I'm going to drag the Goblin over. So there's a Goblin in this group and then their boss. So that's one way to do this. And then I'm going to put 2 Goblins here. So I just changed the number. And then if I hit this refresh, it's going to put the CR value and the XP value for this encounter. So 2 minions and a boss, essentially. And then once you're done with that, you can give it a name. So I'll just say Goblin Mischief or something. Okay, so this is just the name of the encounter. And then what you can do is link this anywhere on the map that you like. So in this case, this is their first encounter. So what I'm going to do is put these guys and link this particular data onto the map. So just left click and drag, drop it right here in the room, and then I will place them ahead of time in this case. So see, I want the boss to be in one of these side rooms. So I'm going to take his token and drag it and drop it in here. And then these guys are going to be in the same room with him. So there'll be a guy up here, or one of his minions will be over here by the door, and then the other one will be sort of next to him. So let me drag and drop that there. So it's kind of like his bodyguard and then another individual. When I'm done placing those, I'll go ahead and lock the encounter and then close it. And once you actually close this, they'll disappear, but they'll come back when you need them. So that's how you make an encounter if you have the content all ready to go. And then that way, if you need to add or change anything, you can always bring an encounter up. You can unlock it, change the quantity. At this point, you can also change the tokens. So if you have other tokens that you want to assign for this encounter, rather than changing them here at the NPC level, you can drag and drop the tokens into this area and change them here just for this encounter. So you might have some assets that are better or different than the ones that come with the game. So if I go to my tokens area and I look up Goblin, hopefully I'm going to find some tokens for it. I'm pretty sure I should have a few. So this is kind of just searching my assets to see what kind of Goblin tokens I might have other than the ones that come with the adventure. But this is kind of the stuff you'd probably want to do before your adventure, not during. So this would probably be a showstopper here if you had to do this every time. But if you're going to run combat, hopefully you already have all this done. But I do want to show the game masters how this can be set up. So best Goblin tokens. Okay, so I'll use some of these, I guess. Let's see, what do we got here? Yeah, so I'll use this best Goblin token pack. So I'm going to use these guys instead of this basic one. So if I left click and drag and drop, that changes the tokens here in the encounter. And then I'm looking for the boss. So maybe it is a female token. Maybe she is the boss. So I'll put that there. And now that I've swapped those out, now what I'm going to do is uncheck these because they're already placed. And now I'm going to replace them, just because if you make changes like that, you usually have to go back and fix those. So I'm going to go ahead and re-put those on the map. And now those are ready to go. And then I'll go ahead and close this, close the actual encounter, and those disappear for the time being. And then get ready to run the combat. So the first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to read something or talk to the players, let them know that they've arrived at the candy factory, and it's at the evening time, so that's why it's dark out. And if I'm a player and I individually click on one of these tokens, that's the vision type that you're noticing on the map. If I click on the Cat Curious Kazan, he will kind of have a little bit better vision, and I believe that's because he has dark vision. So yeah, he has dark vision of 60 feet. So he sees them kind of in black and white. The rest of them don't have dark vision, so that's why it's so dim. So they might say, hey, it's pretty dark out here, let's try to get inside. So this Cat Kazan, since it's not really in combat yet, he's going to go up to the door and listen. So I'm right to say, okay, I'm going to go and listen, see if I can hear anything, because outside there's no activity. It's pretty dead out there. And I'd bring up this character sheet if I was the player, and then go to their skills tab here and take a look at their stealth. Maybe he says, I want to go up there quietly and listen. So he's going to sneak up there. So he was back here. So as the game master, I can hold the Alt key and then drag the token, which will make this line here of how far they moved. And then I can hit OK to approve. So you have to hold down the Alt key. Otherwise, this arrow thing won't show. You can just move it. But as a player, this will come up. So I'll go ahead and approve it. So he's going to move up. He's only allowed to move half his movement anyway. So he's going to move up to the door and take a listen. So he's going to roll a perception. We're not in combat, so he can do both of these turns. The rest of them are kind of milling about quietly. And I'm going to have him roll a perception. And I think the number to beat here, since there isn't a lot going on at the moment, I think if he rolls like a 12 or over, he'll be able to discover a noise if there is any. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this perception roll into the dice tower, because the GM's going to call for it. And he rolled a 19. So in my mind, as the game master, that's a pretty good roll. So I'll say, you press your ear, you're up to the door, you can kind of hear some muffled movement, perhaps. Every once in a while, you can hear a bang or something in the distance, but there's definitely something on the other side of the door. So he's going to let the rest of the group know. And then he's going to see about opening the door. So I'll click on this closed door. As a player, I can click on it. So he opens the door, probably moves in, and then takes a look around, and immediately he'll see the goblins, or at least one of them. So you take this eyeball up here, and you can individually add the goblins, or you can have them they'll automatically be invisible. So if I pop this encounter up and drop this down, they're not going to be visible right away, but since he is in the light of sight, that's goblin number 2. So if I hover over this goblin, you'll see on the top left corner of the map, it's showing goblin 2. So for goblin 2, I might reveal him, and the others aren't really hiding, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the whole group. So if you click on the eyeball on the top left corner here, it's going to allow for all of them to be visible. So now they're all visible. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a chance that this guy wouldn't notice it. So he sees that goblin right away. And now I'm going to ask for initiative, because the goblin shrieks in kind of in surprise as he comes through the door. And that alerts the other goblins too. So you can handle this in different ways, but as a player, they could go ahead and roll initiative. So if I was this player for Cat Kazan, I would go ahead and click on his character sheet. I have initiative. There's an initiative roll here in the center on the front page. Now, if I wanted to double click here, I could, or I can take this initiative roll, left click and drag, and I can drop it in the chat, or I can drop it down here in a shortcut, which is what I'm going to do. And then for that shortcut, I can do my initiative roll from there, from here on out. So I just rolled. It's going to add my effects and my dexterity bonus. So I rolled a 7 on my initiative. So that's just the way you can do it. Or if you don't have anyone at the table, you can go to menu and you can go to the initiative spot here, which looks like 2 hands. And then you can re-roll for everyone. You can just do it for the NPCs, you can do it for all the PCs, or you can clear the initiatives. So it's up to you how you want to handle it. I'm just going to re-roll for everyone. So that reshuffles the deck here, and it looks like Swish is going to go first out of all of this things here. So Swish is outside, and he's going to say, "What do you hear?" So he's going to come kind of running in here to see you're moving into this area. So I'm going to hold the Alt key and move him up, and then move him inside the factory. And this is what he sees based on his vision type. So there is some light here. So he says, "Oh my." And he sees the goblin, and he sees that there's these other 2 and they're armed. So he's going to react to that. So I want to bring up the sheet by clicking on this round circle here. So as the GM, I'm bringing up his character sheet. Now I can see that he already has his effects on, which is great. Can't really do a sneak attack. There's not really anything I can do from that point of view. But what I will do is ready an action. So I'm going to click the ready action. This is a custom thing, but it puts a note here for this round that he's going to ready an action. And what he's going to do is pull out his crossbow, or a short bow in this case. And if anyone attacks him or attacks any of his group, he's going to fire. So he's not sure what to do yet, so that he's going to hold his action. Normally, he'd probably attack, but he doesn't know what to do just yet. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the turn. And now it goes to Goblin number 1, who's standing next to his boss. So I'm going to have him come over and kind of run around here and come out to help his ally. So I'll hold down the Alt key. And you can see it keeps track of your movement. I'm going to go ahead and approve it. And that ends his turn. But he's going to take out his short bow, and he's going to shoot it at Cat Kazan. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down the control key, the right control key. And that targets this individual here. So now what I'll do is on the NPC stat block, there is a short bow attack. So just double click on the attack roll. And that scores a deadly hit. There's a 19. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and double click on the damage, and that will apply the damage appropriately. So 5 plus 2 damage, so that's 7. So ouch! So that arrow goes flying through and buries itself into his chest. So that's his turn. So he's jumping up and down, excited. The next goblin, kind of the same thing. So what I want to do is I'm going to have him move over to Swish and engage him. So holding down the Alt key again. So he moves in to engage. So since that was a thing, Swish gets to attack. He held his attack, so I'm going to go ahead and allow him to attack one of these targets before they get their turn. So what I'll do is have him do a bow shot onto this guy before. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this attack roll onto the token, or you can also do it in here in the combat tracker, so you don't have to do it on the map. You can do everything in the combat tracker. So go ahead and drag and drop that onto him. Make sure this is, yeah, that's Goblin 2. And he scores a hit as well. And now just double click or drag the damage depending on what you have. So I don't have them targeted, so I have to drag the damage. So that Goblin's dying. So he did a total of 5 points of damage. That Goblin only had 5 points, so he's basically unconscious. So he goes down, so he's on the ground essentially. So it'd probably put him back here before he actually reached him. So now we're going to go ahead and hit the down arrow, and the Goblin boss is going to freak out, and he hears the other guy went down. He sees the action. So she's going to come ripping around there and joining the battle. So she doesn't have the patience nor the fear. So she's going to come around the corner and start attacking too. So she comes around. She has a javelin. And she's going to target the rogue. And then I'm going to have her throw the javelin. I don't know how many she has. Probably at least 2. And just double click on the javelin. And that's a miss. So it goes flying up and over his shoulder and into the wall up here, or clangs against the brick wall back there. So that's her turn. She says something in Goblin to the rest of them, or to her ally, like, you know, stay here, don't. Basically, she says that. If I wanted to emulate that in the chat, I could assign the chat here, use the drop down, go to Goblin, and then I want to make sure that I have her selected. So I can click on the speech bubble, and then I'd come down here and type in hold. So essentially she's saying, hold on, don't go too far away, to her ally. And if anyone knew Goblin, it would tell me here as the game master, it would say understood by, and it would tell me which characters, but none of them knows what she said. So you get this weird translation. It looks like gobbledygook here, like the font is different. So they won't know what she said, but they know she said something, possibly a command. They don't know exactly what, but that's essentially what happened on that turn. Okay, so Yordle sees the danger that his ally's in, so he's going to move up to the doorway. He's not going to go inside full. He's close enough to touch Cat Curious, so what he'll do is on his sheet, he's got some spells here, so he's going to cast a Cure Wounds. So he's got 4 slots here, so I'm going to click on one of the slots. And it's a touch spell, so he has to be near him, so he's just going to go ahead and touch the wounded ally. And I'll just drag this heal either onto the combat tracker or on the token, however you want to do it. And there's a heal. So he healed 4, so now Swish is only down 1 hit point, I think, or none actually. Or not Swish, but this is Cat Curious. He's only got 3 damage now instead of 7. So that's nice. So he was able to do that, and I think he's going to hold there. And let's see, does he have a bonus action that he can use? So that was yeah, he can't do any other really big spells or anything, but what I'm going to do is hold his attack or hold his movement there, and I'm going to have him basically take out a weapon. So he's going to take out his quarterstaff and call it good. So that's his turn. So now I'm going to hit the down arrow again, and now it's Mini. So Mini is kind of a big, tough Minotaur warrior type. So I'm going to have her come inside and do some damage. So again, I'm going to have her move by holding down the Alt key. And she sees that at first she thought this guy was going to do something, but she notices he's on the ground. So she's going to basically set up a goring rush where she's going to run in and bash these guys. So on her next turn, I'm going to have her kind of lower her head and run in there and hit them with her horn. So if immediately after you use the dash action on your turn and you move at least 20 feet, you can make one melee attack with your horns as a bonus action. So what I'm going to do is when she has the opportunity, I'm going to have her bum rush in there and try to take one of these guys out. So that's her turn. And she's standing in front of of Swish because she's kind of acting like a human or like a shield, meat shield. Okay, Cat Curious, being that he was so curious and got hurt, is going to move into this corner and try to hide over here. So I'm going to have him kind of stealthily kind of creep over there. And remember, they can only move half their movement rate. So if I bring up the character sheet, it can move 30 feet, so only half of that. Now, nothing limits how far they can actually move. But at least I can kind of track that. And I'll go ahead and approve it. And he's going to pull out a weapon, his bow, and prepare to do a sneak attack. So he's going to try to hide, essentially. So it's kind of hard to do, but these guys are kind of seeing him right here. So he's not really able to hide yet, but he wants to hide from the boss, probably. But this guy can't really hide from. So he's not really hidden at this point. So go ahead and hit the down arrow. Okay, so Swish is going to move back since his partner moved in. He's going to try the door. If the GM remembered, they could lock the door so the players can't get in. They have to do a pick lock. So I don't really have the time to do that right now, but I could actually say, hey, I want to pick this lock. So what I'll do is I'll say, go ahead and try, because he wants to look for an escape route or try to see what's going on. So for right now, I'm going to have him look and kind of listen. So he's going to roll a perception, put his ear up to the door again, and see if we can hear anything on the other side. So he's kind of checking their rear here, so that they don't get ambushed. So again, I dropped it in the dice tower. That's a 7. So there wasn't really anything in there, but what I'll tell them is that over the din of the battle, it's really hard to hear anything, but you don't notice anything right away. And then I might give them the opportunity to pick the lock or something like that. So that'll be their turn, essentially. So they're going to try to pick the lock. All right, so this goblin is told to stick around. So they're going to basically target Minnie here. So you got to make sure that you select the token as the GM and then target, or you'll target yourself. So that's a common mistake. So I was still on Cat Curious. If I would have hit target, I would have targeted them instead. So you got to make sure you click on the token first and then pick your target and hold down the right control key and click on the target. So there's that. And remember, this individual down here is dead, so I'll probably remove them off the map because I don't plan on reviving them. So that kind of gets that clutter out of the way. And it left a little blood mark behind of where it fell. So that's kind of cool. That's a death marker thing. And now I'm going to double click the short bow attack roll. 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So that was a hit, and it was a critical hit. So now I'm going to do a double click on the damage. Yeah, I wonder why it didn't crit. Oh, it's the wrong. No, I did it right. So Minnie was wounded, but for some reason, it didn't pick up the critical hit effect. So I'm just going to go ahead and roll damage again. Not going to worry about it. It should have picked up that extra damage. I don't know what happened here, but the critical hit was noticed. But then when I rolled damage, I think maybe I rolled it against the wrong thing. I don't know. But nonetheless, I'm just going to roll the damage. Okay, so Minnie took, it took damage to, it damaged the wrong individual. So what you want to look up here is see I have, maybe I have the wrong thing target. Yeah, so I have two things targeted here. So that's a common mistake that a lot of people make. So if I go to the targeting area, I can remove swish. So that's what happened. So swish is no longer I got to reverse that. So if you make that mistake, what you can do is this damage that I rolled against swish, it shouldn't have happened. So what I'm going to do is take this and minus this out because that wasn't correct. So what I'll do is right click, go to this plus and minus, and then I'll drag this. Oh, it's going to do this last one. So I wanted it to do on this one. So it'll do the last attack. So I kind of already went too far, but you can reverse it that way. So if you made that mistake, but I'm just going to go ahead and heal him. There. I kind of cheated, but so Cat has less damage now. So he was only at 3. There we go. So that's what happened. I had the wrong individual targeted. So that's something that can come up during gameplay. But it looks like I need to roll another damage because it went to the wrong person. So there's that. There we go. So yeah, that did the critical damage. And yeah, so that's looks like Minnie has 15 points of damage on her. And I got to take off 5 because I buggered up the whole thing. But nonetheless, she took some heavy damage there. So that's not good. So to hit the down arrow goes the Goblin boss. Okay, so the Goblin boss is going to move closer. And does she notice Cat Kazan? So Cat Kazan had rolled, let's see, what did he roll? Okay, so if he rolls, if the passive perception on the Goblin is probably less than the roll. Yeah, that's 9. So he's basically don't notice. She doesn't notice him, so she's going to target Minnie again. Okay, so let's see, Swish, Swash, and Minnie. So what you got to watch out for is now, let's see, there we go. So that way I don't have 2 of them targeted again. And then I go ahead and double click the attack roll. So that's a miss. So he threw it and it kind of just went right over Minnie's shoulder. So that was its attack. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the down arrow. Now Yordle is kind of wants to help his group. So I'm going to have him move in. So again, I held the Alt key and then moved the token and then approve it. And now that he's inside, I'm going to have him cast the Bless spell. So he's going to have a hard time seeing Swish there with the lighting. But I'm going to go ahead and allow it to happen. So he can still hear him and he kind of has an idea where he is. So fine. So bring this up. I want to bless the party. So I can bless 3 individuals other than myself. Or I can do myself and 2 others. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and target himself and the other 2 and leave Minnie out of this one and go ahead and click on this effect, but I can also decide to cast it at second level, so I'll do that, and then I'll go ahead and target Minnie. So I upcast it essentially. So I can add another person to that. Now once that happens, now I'm going to go ahead and roll the effect or click on the effect button, and that will apply the effect bonus to all of the allies. Now everyone has that effect. So that'll end the turn there. And now Minnie's going to make her move. So she's going to charge after. She's got 20 feet to move. So I'm going to have her go after this individual. So she's going to bum rush in there and do her horn attack. So Minnie's kind of lowers her head and she just goes running over. So she has just enough room to clear that, and then I'm going to go ahead and allow it and call this a, it's going to make a hammering horn, like a strike here. And I didn't see the damage. Yeah, it says you can attack on your turn. You can use bonus action to attempt to shove the target. Okay, so that's basically what it's going to do is shove it back. They must be within 5 feet of you and no more than larger than you. Okay, so I'm going to do the roll here, the save. He failed to save and gets knocked back. How many feet? So it's okay, so 10 feet away. So she knocks it back 10 feet. And she kind of brings her head up, and that was a bonus action. So that was the hammering horns. So she moved, and then she rushed up, and it says immediately after you use a dash action on your turn. See, those are both, what do you call it? They're both bonus actions, but essentially I can make one melee attack, which I should have probably executed, but I'll just have her run up and bump this goblin back, and she pulls out her battle axe, or she kind of brings it up, and she doesn't have a shield, so I'm going to use it two-handedly, and I will drop the shield bonus. I have an effect for that. So she doesn't benefit from the shield that she has equipped. And then that'll basically be her turn. So she's going to swing it at the goblin because he's in range. So go ahead and swing the battle axe and take a chunk at him, hopefully. And that scores a hit. That had the effect of the bless on it. And he's wounded, so he just barely clipped him. Like he tried to like dodge, and the blade just kind of like went across and just barely clipped him. It hurt him though. He's pretty hurt. Let's see, he's only got like 6 hit points left, so that was pretty devastating. So Cat Kazan can now do a sneak attack because he's got an ally close to this individual here. So I'm going to go into this hide action. He's actually behind Minnie. So I'm going to put the hide ability on him. And then I'm going to have him target. So again, I want to click on this token, target this individual. Now it's kind of hard because he has to shoot through an ally. So I'm going to put a -2 to hit. But they got advantage because they're hidden. So let's see what happens on the actual attack roll first. He's going to try a sneak attack. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on the attack. Oh yeah, so that's definitely a hit, even with the -2. And then what I'm going to do is apply the sneak attack damage. So let me check that. So I want to go ahead and bring up, let's see. Okay, so sneak attack. And then, let's see. No, this isn't the rogue. So basically, he just did an attack roll. And so I'm going to just go ahead and click on the damage. All right, so he took him out. So didn't really do a sneak attack, but he was behind Minnie. He was able to get the attack off. The advantage could have been that he was hiding, but that would have normally been a rogue thing. But even with that roll, it dropped a 13, so it still would have probably been a hit anyways, because we had that bonus from the bless. So I'm not too worried about how that panned out. But nonetheless, he's out. So she took out Kazan took out the Goblin. So go ahead and right click or delete him off the combat tracker. And again, it leaves a little blood spot there. And then I think that'll end our turn. And so we'll go up to Swish. Swish is going to pick lock this, see what's in there on the other side. So go over to the skills, go to sleight of hand, and drag and drop that. So the challenge rating to unlock that door is really easy. It's like 12 or something, 11. But he failed. So he put the picks in there, and it basically snapped off. So he's frustrated. So he kind of hops up and down. He's like thumping his foot. He's like pissed off, basically. So the Goblin boss has Minnie targeted. She's going to yield. So basically she's going to give up since her minions are down. So instead of attacking, she's going to lower her weapons, put her hands up, and try to preserve her life, knowing that she probably can't take these guys on herself, and also knowing that, you know, she's outnumbered, so she's not stupid. So she's going to go ahead and stop fighting. So that's basically the end of the combat. And that's kind of how combat would play out. It's kind of this back and forth type thing. But what you'll notice is that targeting can get really confusing. So if you have a player that's using Fantasy Grounds, you have to remind them to switch targets or to remove the target when they're done. So for instance, if Minnie targets this particular boss by holding down the right control key, this will target it, shows the distance as well. But if on my next turn, if I want to change targets or I don't plan on attacking her, or perhaps she's even dead, I need to go ahead and just do that again by holding down the Alt key and just repeating that process, and that removes the target. Or up here in the combat tracker, there is a targeting symbol, and you can go up here and clear the targets from there. So this might be even easier than trying to do it this way. But that's a common mistake that we made. Obviously, I made the same mistake too. So this is a common thing, but like I said, if you accidentally damage somebody and you haven't gone past your rolls, meaning that your last roll on here was damage, you can right click and then go to the plus or minus, and then you can use that -7 to heal. So rather than taking 7 damage, you drag that number to the erroneous target and it will heal that individual. So that would essentially heal Kazan in this case. So that's how you reverse the damage if that happens. So you right click on the actual damage itself, and it brings up this plus or minus button, which is positive and negative, and it will reverse the damage. So that's a way to fix that without having to manually change the numbers up here. So that's just kind of the way that combat can go in a session for the 5th edition rule set. Now, it's going to be different for Pathfinder and other game systems, but similarly, you'll be going down the combat tracker and then using the skills and the combat and the actions tab either against targets on the map or on targets on the combat tracker. So you don't necessarily have to have a battle map. You can do everything in the combat tracker. So if you do Theater of the Mind, you can do all the targeting, attacks, saves, and everything inside of the combat tracker. You don't necessarily need to have a map. It's nicer to have a visual representation, but that's not always the case. You can also use any image you want and use that as your kind of like your battle map. You don't have to have a tactical map like this. But I hope that helps you guys a little bit, kind of get a gist of how the combat flows. And a lot of it's just managing your actions, knowing what you can do. Obviously, I wasn't familiar with minis goring or hammering horns. So now that I know what to do, I can use those better. They're both bonus actions, so you can't really do both of those at the same time. But this goring rush allows you to use the dash action on your turn, and you can move at least 20 feet. You can make one melee attack with your horns as a bonus action. But see, I don't see the horn damage anywhere on here, so whoever made this, aka me, did not include that. So I would have to look for that and make the horn damage. It's probably a 1d6 or a 1d4, but nonetheless, if I did this goring rush and I wanted to make attack with the horns, I can right click on this, add an action, add damage, and then in this case, probably a D4 or a D6. And then you would put your, this would be piercing. And then that would be the damage part of it. So now that would be available for me to use. And then what I could do up here is I'll put base or strength in this case so that it picks up the strength bonus. So that's just something you could do to make this more complete. So they rushed in with the dash action. You can make one melee attack with your horns as a bonus action. So basically you rush up and you gore someone with it. I didn't look up the actual damage because it doesn't state it here in the actual effect, but I imagine it's a D4 or a D6. So that's just basically, just some things you can do in Fantasy Grounds, and hopefully that, with some practice and, watching videos like this and using the platform, you'll get the hang of it. That's really the best way to learn, is to actually do it. And it's not easy to do if you don't have players or you don't have the content. So, but nonetheless, I think I'll let you guys go. Happy holidays, and enjoy your time off if you have that. I know all of you do not necessarily celebrate Christmas, but if you do, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I'll probably see you guys after the holiday. I got one more event coming up this month, which is a map tools class, which I had to move to Wednesday, and then after that, there won't be anything else till after the New Year. Yeah, no problem, Chaotic Elf. Take care. You guys have fun. And again, the map that was on here was from Moepsii Maps. He is our community member, uses Fantasy Grounds. I think he's been playing Pathfinder more lately. But it's a pretty neat map. And if you guys want the map for anything, if you want to use it for a one-shot, if you go into our server, so this is Fantasy Grounds Academy. If you guys, the links will be at the end of this video, but basically in the GM chat is the image. I actually made a labeled one in case you wanted to make an adventure out of it. And I actually did kind of make kind of like a one-shot right up here. So if you guys want to snag that, you can. It's free. But take care, everyone. Have